passion igniting the light through highs and lows. We'll stand as one, a legacy, a tale that's just begun. Together we roar, together we grow. Detroit Lions will rise, with a heart full of dreams and the fire in our eyes. From the past to the future, we'll claim our own. In the home of the brave, we'll proudly have grown. So let's lift our voices, let's turn it up loud. For the love of the Lions, we'll always be proud.
All right. Good morning. Welcome to the Rise and Grind Morning Show. It is 8:05. It is October 8th. Good morning, Eric. What's happening?
We got to change the name of the show, man. Rise and Rockers.
Rise and Rockers. You know, we got to check our volume real quick here. Make sure we're all good. Looks like I'm solid.
All right, let me see here. Yep.
Yeah,
I'm
you know,
all
I kind of like the intro now. It gets you moving a little bit. Gets the blood going.
I like it.
So anyway, who do we have with us this morning? We haven't done any shout outs in a while. So we've got Trace in the house. We got Let's Go Lions in here. Revenge Week. Mike P's in the house. Good morning. Bruce Morton. Let's see. Giovanni Capillaro. We got Pat Beach. That's a new name, or at least one I haven't seen before. Welcome in this morning to the Rise and Grind Morning Show. We got Ed Andrews, Ornery U of M dad, Michael Garrity. Yeah, you got to be ornery U of M dad. I mean, especially after that loss the other day. No, I'm not twisting it. You know, I'm just twisting it. Shane Smith, good morning. Dennis Tidick. We got Dale in the house. Who else is with us today? That's about it. It looks like we got a light crew, but we also have some subscriber only mode on this morning. We want to make sure that the people that visit us today get an opportunity to subscribe to the channel. Last I checked, we were only about 90 or 80 away from giving away another mini helmet autographed by Panay Sewell or Chris Spielman. So hurry up and smash that like button. Of course, let's get these ads turned off and subscribe to the channel if you want your opportunity at a pop-up live getting a autographed helmet. We do it every 500 subscribers, and you could be the next winner. What's on the top of the brain this morning, Eric? Anything?
Revenge.
This early in the morning?
Yeah, that is the what do they say about revenge? It's a dish best served cold or something.
I think so.
Or warm. I don't know.
No, I think that's what they say. It's a dish best served cold.
I don't care if it's cold, hot, warm, lukewarm. I don't care as long as we get revenge. That's all I care about. Dan Campbell is out for his revenge story. You know, he's got it plastered up on a board somewhere. He's putting big X's through the teams that we beat, that we didn't beat last year. So, you know, the Seahawks were on that list. You know, the Cowboys are on that list. You know, the 49ers are on that list. And the Packers might be on that list too. So...
But you know, Dan is the ultimate. He's the ultimate. How do I say it? He's not going to tell you.
No,
right? He's not going to tell you that he wants revenge. He's just gonna. Nope. We're gonna get to work. We're gonna put our nose down. We're gonna get better each week. And they're a good team over there. We know they're a good team, and you know they're having success. They've won a lot of games. Blah 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 blah. You know, deep down in his heart, he's got some deep-seated emotion that he wants to let loose against the Cowboys. I mean, he's a player there. He grew up there, being a former Lion, playing against them. I mean, there's always been that hatred, if you will, that Lions, you know, boiling blood for the Cowboys. They've always been a thorn in our side or a thorn in our paw, right? It's time. It's time that. Yeah, and to your point, Fred Peterson, number 68, is eligible. I swear to goodness, if Dan Campbell does not have Decker report on the first play, I'm going to be disappointed. I'm going to be very disappointed. But we're going to get to all of the Cowboy stuff. Thank you, Shane. Appreciate that, buddy. All of the Cowboy stuff will start tomorrow. And usually I do it on on Thursdays, but we're going to get started early because we're going to have a lot to get through. Tonight will be fantasy football tonight. We're going to be switching to Tuesday nights. You can blame the Tigers for this. Hey, they just happen to be in the postseason. ALDS game is on tomorrow night, and Jared's going to be going to the game. I would love to go to the game. I don't know if it's in the cards, but we're going to switch fantasy football to tonight, and then I think we're going to stick on Tuesdays, which actually helps because we won't be rubbing up against Chef and his 7 p.m. time. So what do you think about those Tigers, Eric? I mean, when's the last time you've been to a Tigers game?
Dude, listen, so I went to my very first Tigers game about 2-3 weeks ago. I went down for a Lions game. It was a Saturday, and I hopped on a scooter from my Airbnb, and I was going down to Fanatic U across from Ford Field to buy some Lions stuff, which I always do. I always go there. And I'm getting down, and I get down by Comerica, and there's a million Tiger fans everywhere. And I'm like, what is going on? They're like, oh, there's a Tigers game tonight. And I'm like, oh, I wonder if I can get a ticket. So I tried to get a ticket on Ticketmaster, and I couldn't get it to go through because their phone service down there by the stadium is so atrocious. So I went over to the box office. I'm like, hey, can I get a ticket? Sure. Give me the best ticket you got? So they gave me a ticket right behind the dugout for the Tigers. And I got to sit over by Josh Teebs. He's the guy that holds up all the crazy signs for the Tigers. And he inspired me. So he gave me one of his signs, and with Amon-Ra St. Brown on it. And man, that was a blast. It took me back to being 9 years old again. So when I was 9 years old, it was 1984. The Detroit Tigers won the World Series with Alan Trammell, Kurt Gibson, Lou Whitaker, and Sparky Anderson. And to me, that was the Tigers. And there was a feeling about it. Everyone was invested, right? And you'd wake up every day and you'd go get your little transistor radio, and you'd ride out to the dam with your friends to go fishing on your bikes, and you'd listen to the radio every day and listen to all the Tigers games. And you could just see it in your mind, because I lived 6 hours away. There was no way I could go to a Tigers game when I was a kid.
Right.
And dude, I wore my Tigers jacket everywhere. And I was just this dorky little, Tigers fan my whole life. And this season,
not much has changed.
Yeah, I know. I'm still the same. Just Lions now. But this season's kind of brought me back to being a kid again. I actually turned on the TV last night and I watched the 9th inning, and I'm actually interested in baseball again. It's kind of cool. And I kind of like that they sped the game up, because when I went to the game a couple weeks ago, oh my God, it's like pitch, done.
Right.
Wow, that was a fast game. It took like an hour and a half. I'm like, wow, this isn't a 3-4 hour drug out thing. Every single pitch isn't 30 minutes. So it was kind of nice. I like that the speed of the game is sped up, and it's a different game now. It's a much different game. It's nothing like when I watched when I was 9 years old. But man, does that bring me back to those fuzzy feelings of being a 9-year-old watching the World Series Detroit Tigers. These guys have the same kind of feel to them, if that makes any sense.
The last time I really went to a Tigers game was, I want to say it was when they were making the run. That was with like Porcello in
2012 or something.
Yeah. And it is funny. My seats where I was sitting, Steve Eiserman was right behind me. We were down on the third baseline. So good family friend was used to be owner of the Whitecaps. I think he still is, but they always have. I'm sorry, right behind my dad was Steve Eiserman, not me. But the game that I went to, I was down the first base side, and it was much different game then. I mean, even was it 12 or 11, 10? I don't remember the year it was. Yeah. That tells you how much I follow the Tigers anymore. I just haven't. They just haven't been great. But watching the game these days it's going to be much different, like you're speaking to here with the pitch count, or the pitch clock and speeding everything up. It kind of takes away from, if you want a good nap, do you turn on golf or you turn on the Tigers game? And there's just something about the noise it's like white noise. It just puts you to sleep. At least that's what it does for me. Nowadays, I don't know if it does that because, one, I don't listen, I don't watch, but I don't know. Maybe we'll try to get down there tomorrow. I think it'd be fun to go. All right. Right away, though, let's do something that we have not done yet this week. We didn't have a chance. That's paying our respects to a former Detroit Lion who passed away a few days ago, and that's Greg Landry. Let me pull up this article here. And while we're talking about it, I had an image. There we go. One second here. Greg Landry. So Greg Landry, former Detroit Lions quarterback and assistant coach, had passed away age 77. The Lions announced Landry's passing on social media last week, Friday. Now, this happened after the morning show was over. Of course, we got off and running on other things yesterday, and we forgot to pay our respects to Greg, Mr. Landry here. So, note by the Lions as we join the NFL community in mourning the loss of former Lions quarterback and coach Greg Landry. That's what the Detroit Lions team was quoted as saying. Landry played in the NFL from 1968 to 1981 with the Lions and then the Baltimore Colts. After 2 seasons in the USFL, he returned to the NFL and played 1 game with the Chicago Bears. He threw for 16,052 yards in his NFL career with 98 touchdowns and 103 interceptions. He was also one of the best running quarterbacks in NFL history, gaining more than 2,600 yards with 21 TDs on the ground. The Lions selected Landry with the 11th pick of the 1968 NFL Draft out of Massachusetts. He played 11 seasons with the Lions and had a career record of 40, 41, and 3. His finest season in Detroit came in 1971, where he threw for 2,237 yards and 16 touchdowns and was a first-team All-Pro and made his only Pro Bowl of his career was that season. Now, in 1976, he earned the NFL's Comeback Player of the Year award after passing for more than 2,191 yards and 17 TDs on the season. He was then traded to the Baltimore Colts and played 3 seasons with the Colts, going 3-10-1. He then moved to the USFL and played 1 season with the Chicago Blitz and the Arizona Wranglers. He was an emergency starter for the Bears against Detroit in 1984, the year that the Tigers won World Championship. Landry joined the Lions in 1995 as quarterbacks coach on the staff of head coach Wayne Fontes. Landry was also held assistant coaching positions with Cleveland and Chicago in the NFL and the college level at Illinois. So obviously our hearts, thoughts, prayers are with the Landry family, of course, the Detroit Lions and the legend community. Obviously Greg Landry will always be in the hearts of Lions everywhere. And I think that's really it for Mr. Landry here, man. Thoughts and prayers were with you and your family.
What was he one of the legends that was at the game on Monday?
I don't know if he's inducted into the Lions Legends. I can't imagine that he's not. Maybe that's something you can look up while we're rolling this morning and see if he's in the pride of the Lions, or part of the legend crew. Be interesting to know because, yeah, that means if he was there and then, 4 days later he's not.
Yeah.
It's amazing, how life just clicks on by and these things happen and life's too fragile, man. Life's too fragile. Really is. All right, let's check out the roster here. What are we doing this morning? We're going to bounce around a little bit. So Lions news and rumors. Lions bolstered the linebacker depth. So I guess this is speaking to more of what I've been saying. The Lions are not bringing in anybody, guys. They're not going out and finding this high profile defensive end or linebacker or receiver, even though we'll talk about a receiver that just became available unexpectedly. I don't think there's any room on this roster for another receiver at this point. Power rankings we'll get into. PFF by the numbers, offense and defense review. and Dan Campbell's press conference. So there's a few tidbits out of the press conference I'm going to bring in, we'll talk about. And Dan Campbell mentioned in that press conference that he needs better communication. Matter of fact, in the press conference, he was not very happy, it seemed like. Had a question that was asked about the internal review, that the Lions did during the bye week. And we'll see where that goes. Injuries looking better. Injury front's getting better week by week, day by day. And the Dan Gambles of the season. So we were trying to look up the fourth down situation for the Lions. And there's some stats that are not jiving. So one site says this, one site says that. Probably won't get to that segment only because we want to dig into it a little bit deeper. But the point that I was going to try to make with it is, where are the Lions on fourth down situations this year compared to last year? Is Dan, is he getting the same amount of opportunities? I guess I'd really have to go through it, with a fine tooth comb to see, how many possessions have we had, versus last year, because that's going to give you an idea of how many opportunities we've had to go for it on fourth down. So probably won't get to that segment today, but Motown Mitch just joined us.
So in here, it says that it's fitting that Johnson's honor comes on Lions homecoming weekend. He's expected to have 92 former Lions join him on the field. I guess there was 100. And they include old timers like Greg Landry and Eddie Murray, long timers like Jason Hanson, Robert Porcher, and some of Johnson's teammates like Golden Tate, Stephen Tulloch, and Glover Quinn. So he was supposed to be there. It doesn't say if he was or not, though.
Interesting.
So I would assume he was there.
I gotta fix my screen 1 second. All right, so let's start with this. And by the way, so I wanted to look. Last year we had the big issue in the Cowboys game with Brad Allen, right? And the Cowboys game's coming up, and I'm like, where's Brad Allen? Like, where is this guy? Like, where's he reffing? Is he reffing? And I found it interesting. There is a whole slew of stats for refs. I thought it was nuts. They track refs just like they do players.
Really?
Yes. So it tells you where they're scheduled. It tells you how many penalties they called for and against. I never looked this up before. So I had to look it up, and you would be, I don't know, put on your tinfoil hat for a minute.
I have to make a tinfoil hat for you, man.
Brad Allen is scheduled to ref like the next or the last, I'd have to look it up again, like 7 Jets games in a row.
Whoa.
Yes. So he flip-flopped. He did a couple of NFC North, Vikings and Packers games this season. And then I want to say starting sometime around mid-October, he's scheduled for like 5, 6, 7 Jets games in a row. So is this the narrative for Aaron Rodgers? Is this the Jets start to win because of refs? I'm putting that seed out now. Let's see if it gets a little bit of water and grows, because if these Jets start to win and they're starting a little bit of, hazy calls here, that's your answer. I'm just going to leave it right there. I'm not going to go any further. That's as far as the tinfoil hat's going today. But hey, could be something to it. I'm just saying.
From what I saw the other day, man, old Aaron Rodgers is washed up.
Yeah, he's not looking the greatest. But at the same time, it's early, man. There's so much time left in the season. You're only through 5 weeks. Even if you're close, if you're 2-3 or 3-2, hell, you could even be 1-4 right now and still have a shot at making a wild card.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's start with this. Lions bolstered the linebacker depth. So, like I've been talking about now for the last week or so, because there's just been a lot of conversation. What are the Lions doing? We lose Marcus Davenport. So there's a hole, right? I mean, there's a hole for a big end. I would say the bigger hole is linebacker. And I've been saying that. Your buddy, our buddy of the show, Coach Tony's been saying that since prior to the season, that we've had a big hole at linebacker, that we needed a major upgrade. I would say the linebackers are playing fairly well to start the season. I'm going to say this, and I know you guys are not going to agree with me, but I think that the Lions played better with Alex Anzalone out versus the Cardinals than with Anzalone in the very next game that he was in. And I'm not saying that that's like a definitive, he's not a good player or he's a problem on the team. I'm not saying that. But for some reason, they seem to play much more disciplined football. And I don't know if it's because they were, they had to do some things different schematically because they were missing one of their best players. Because Anzalone is one of our best players. There's just no doubt about it. But they did something different in that game where I felt like they had better success. And it's almost like, can't you just adopt that mentality for the rest of the season? Even when he's in the game, can't you have that same mentality that you have to do things a certain way or a little bit differently? I don't know. Maybe there's something to it. But the Detroit Lions are clearly not in the mode right now of bringing in high-priced free agents. They're not in the mode of giving up draft capital. This team is built through the draft. It's going to be built through the draft. And you have to supplement in free agency. And we could go back to all of the Brad Holmes, press conferences and interviews. He's told us time and time again that, free agency, the whole free agency period at the beginning of the new league season is used for a general purpose for him. And that is to fill the gaps, fill the holes. You got a lot of holes, from roster attrition, year over year. You have to fill those holes, but you're not going out to find, the crux or the core of the team in free agency. Yes, you might get one or two here or there. Jared Goff was a designed move, right? That was not just a free agent acquisition. That was a trade. There was a lot more involved there than I think what people thought in the very beginning. He was a bridge, but he definitely wasn't, he definitely was not brought in to not be successful and be the Lions' future quarterback. That's exactly what he was brought in for. So you can't really count that one, right? But I think that when you look at free agency overall and what Brad Holmes does is he's trying to fill in the second and third tier guys, right? The second and third string. He's trying to fill all those holes with really good depth. All of our starters are coming from the draft, and they have been. Even our second and third tier depth is coming from the draft, and I think that that's kind of where the Lions started in 2021 was filling out the depth. Just so happened that Amon-Ra St. Brown turned out to be one of the best in the NFL. We knew that Penei Sewell was going to be really good, but I don't think there's anybody else that we drafted that year that we expected to be day one starters and primary starters for the balance of their career. It just so happened that more players have worked out than they haven't. So Brad Holmes is going to build this team to the draft, and there's nothing wrong with that. Matter of fact, it is the absolute perfect way to do it. When you are leaning towards a Super Bowl run, yeah, you're probably going to take a couple of risks here or there. But is Brad Holmes really going to do it this year? He hasn't yet. If he does do it, I feel like it's going to be more injury related than anything else. And right now, Barnes being out for the year, as per Dan Campbell yesterday, more than likely no chance of him coming back. There could be a play for a linebacker, which is kind of what I said last week and this week already. Linebacker to me is the position I see them going after. Would you agree or disagree with any of that?
Yeah, I really don't see him doing much. He brought in two guys this week that are technically linebackers, but both of them have been edge rushers primarily in the NFL. So I don't know if it's that Sam sort of spot that they're looking to fill. Someone that can be a rush linebacker. I'm thinking that's more or less what he's looking for, and he's trying to see if he can do it on the super cheap. He doesn't want to give up draft capital. He doesn't want to give up anything for these guys right now.
Yeah. Jay-Z, good point. Says draft pick development over free agent also seriously helps the salary cap. Yeah. I mean, dude, perfect point. Perfect point. You know, the more that you design your team around the draft and you're balancing out, you know, what I call roster roulette, right? I mean, every given year you have to target certain players. You know, you just signed Jared Goff to a big contract. So they expected that was probably going to happen had he continued to play the way that he was playing. Like, it was a foregone conclusion. So they went out and they grabbed a quarterback, you know, and Hendon Hooker. That's the play, right? You get a mid-round quarterback, very cheap on the salary cap. Just so happened to be someone that had extremely high upside. So Brad rolled the dice on someone that was coming in with an ACL injury or Achilles, whatever he had, knee injury. So it's turning out to where that's a pretty damn good pickup, right? I mean, we still don't know everything about Hendon Hooker, and that's okay. Hopefully we don't need him. Aiden Hutchinson. So Aiden Hutchinson taken in 22, you're expecting now that he's going to get paid and he's going to get a handsome bag. So does that mean that you can bring in these high price free agents and still keep Aiden Hutchinson? Yeah, you probably could, but you're not going to be able to keep DJ Reader. You won't be able to keep Aleem McNeil. You won't be able to keep Alex Anzalone if you want to re-sign him to another contract. At some point, Jack Campbell's going to have to get paid. He's still at least one, if not 2 seasons away. There's a reason why they took him as early as they did. They wanted the benefit of having 5 years. So you're gonna be up against it at some point. You know, Jared Goff's big contract is going to start to fill in at some point. So you have to be very careful with the contracts and the salary cap to be able to supplement still in free agency to pull off that one wild one. If you know the chips are down, you're down 3 linebackers and you've got to do something. Well, that's when you have to do something. I don't think that Brad's in that mode right now. I think that we are deep enough, and I think he trusts the way that he's drafted, and I think he trusts the way that this team is developed, all of these second and third tier guys, that they're not concerned. And there was another point in here. I forget who made it. Where was it?
Here's one for you also, Will.
But something about the playoffs that you know, all these big time free agents have never really helped a playoff run. And I would say that you probably couldn't put that tag on all of them, but I would say the majority. You know, the majority of these big free agent signings throughout the season haven't really helped the team that much. What were you going to say, Eric?
Don't forget, we still have the 5th-year option on Hutch too, so we can put it off for another year if we need to.
Well, so this is his 3rd season, so he's eligible, right? He's eligible next year for a new contract. So when this season's done, he's eligible for a contract. Does that mean that he's automatically going to get one? No. Does that mean that he's going to ask for one? Probably. I mean, any agent that's smart enough, you know, and these guys are watching what Aiden's getting done right now, and they're going to say, yeah, I mean, I think it's time to talk turkey. And knowing Brad Holmes, he's going to say, well, turkey's cheaper right now because it's not going to be here in a couple more seasons. Yeah, you could totally limp Aiden Hutchinson out. You could walk him through 5 years and, you know, continue to sign him after that to 1-year deals and franchise tag him all you want. Is that good for the player? No. Is it good for the team? Absolutely not. That is horrible for the salary or for the cap. So, and I don't think that they would do something like that to Aiden. I don't think Aiden wants to go anywhere else, at least right now. I don't get the big city vibes from Aiden. I think he's comfortable where he is as long as he can continue to produce, you know, maybe have some shot at a records. I think that that's valuable to him, but I think the more valuable component is that Aiden wants to win a Super Bowl in Detroit because this is where he's from, is that area. He's a Michigander or Michiganian, whatever you want to call it, at heart. And he would love to see the Detroit Lions finally get on the board. speaking for him. I don't know. I mean, just based on what I've heard. So at the end of the day, you have to be very careful with roster roulette. So the point that I was trying to make is you brought in Aiden in 22. So he's eligible now in 25 for a new contract, which means next season, I expect with a capital E, the Lions are going to draft another edge rusher early next season. I can almost guarantee it, but it depends on where they finish this year, and it also depends on who is coming into the draft next year. But I would almost bet just about anything that they are going to take an edge rusher or the big defensive end position that has the ability to get after the quarterback as well, round 1 or 2. And here's the reason why. You got a big giant contract for Aiden. Well, now you'll still have a fairly decent, first round contract, top 10, still a pretty decent contract. I think they're, right around 40 million all in over 4 years or something like that. So you're still going to have a sizable contract to this guy, but it's not 25 million a year. You're going to get 4 years out of a guy or 5 years out of a guy as opposed to 1.5, from a big time free agent. And you've got development here. You've got growth and development, and you're bringing these players into your system. They don't have any of these bad habits from all these other teams and all these other coaches and all the other players that they've been around. You bring them into your system. They're taught by your coaches, and they're your kind of player. And I think that's why Brad Holmes values the draft so much, is you get to bring these guys into your culture that they speak of. And that's more than just attitude and energy and good vibes on a Sunday. It's the training, the development, it's everything. So before I get going off too crazy here, who do you think, right now, do you really think that there's a linebacker out there that makes sense? I don't know if you've done any research, but do you think that there's a linebacker out there that, would require a trade that the Lions would want to bring in?
I don't think so. Not really. There's nobody that the only linebacker I've seen that's doing spectacular is that Van Ginkel kid, and he's in a different type of our defense than we run.
Well, yeah, and he was just signed by Minnesota.
Exactly.
So he's not going anywhere. But the Lions did bring in a couple of linebackers, and the one linebacker, and I haven't gone deep into the weeds on him yet, I do like. So the Detroit Lions, is coming from the Detroit News, Richard Silva. The Lions made a couple of practice squad transactions. Safety Eric Hallett and kicker Matthew McCrane were released, and they were just signed, over the last couple of weeks. But they were released, and the Lions replaced them with a couple of outside linebackers. They brought in Cam Gill and Al Quadin Mohammed. Excuse me. Gill, most recently a member of the Carolina Panthers, and Muhammad, the Dallas Cowboys. Now, Gill began his career as an undrafted free agent in 2020, making the active roster for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as a rookie out of Wagner. And he appeared in 12 regular season games and all 4 postseason contests on the way to the Bucs winning the championship. So not only was he an undrafted free agent in 2020, he found his way to getting some PT, and just so happened to win a Super Bowl as an undrafted free agent. What a way to start a career. So he's got all of the intangibles there, right? He has the experience factor. He's been through it. You know what I mean? Now, he had a half a sack against Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Now, the majority, 80.6% of Gill's 953 career snaps have come on special teams. So he's a big-time special teamer, which is what the Lions have kind of lost, as well with some of these players that have hit IR or like Barnes. He's going to be out for a while. He also tallied 100 defensive reps as a second-year pro in 2021, but he missed the entire 22 season with a Liz Frank injury that he suffered in Tampa Bay's preseason opener. Gill then saw 62 defensive snaps and a career-high 308 on special teams in 2023 before he left for Carolina the following season. Gill went through the preseason with the Panthers. He played in one game, but was placed on injured reserve with an ankle injury in late August. As Carolina trimmed down its roster to 53 players, he reached an injury settlement with the team and was released. Now, this next guy, Al-Quaiden Muhammad. Now, this guy actually has some ability, from at least from my perspective. Now, it's a very narrow perspective right now because we just don't know enough about the guy. But he was selected in the 6th round of the 2017 NFL draft by the New Orleans Saints. So you have the parity factor here, right? AG knows him from time in the Saints. Dan Campbell knows him from time at the Saints. He was waived in 2018 and made his way to the Indianapolis Colts. He was waived, where he appeared in 64 games over 4 seasons. Muhammad registered a career best 6 sacks in 2021, which helped earn him a 2-year deal with the Chicago Bears in March of 2022. Now, after making 9 starts in Chicago, Muhammad was released in February of 2023. He then went back to the Colts, but he was given a 6-game suspension for violating the NFL's policy regarding performance-enhancing drugs in December of 2023 and didn't appear in a game with the Colts in his 2nd stint. Now, that's a pretty alarming statement, right? That he got busted for these performance-enhancing drugs, but we just don't know everything about it. We don't know what it was. We don't know if it was a prescription. We don't know if it was something off the shelf. I have no idea. Haven't looked into it. So
Could have been cough medicine. You never know with the NFL.
exactly. You never know. So
Or vitamin.
that's where the Lions are sitting right now. They are looking for guys that they want to bring in that aren't going to cost them a bunch of money, that have some experience, that could probably slide onto the field in a pinch. And a guy like Muhammad, actually, I mean, the guy's big. Like you see the picture, right? I mean, the dude is an absolute animal when you look at him. It'd be interesting to see what I pull down on this guy when I do a deep dive on him tonight. Not saying he's going to make his way to the field, but he could. He could if the Lions really need him. And the reason why they might need him is because Barnes is gone for the year, according to Dan Campbell. Yesterday during the press conference, he was asked about a few players, but most notably it was Derek Barnes, and it sounds like he's definitely going to be gone for the year. So Dan Campbell was quoted as saying, "I think we will be fortunate to get him at any point this year. I don't want to say it's not going to happen, but I think we'd be pretty fortunate if it does." So obviously this is a tough blow for the Lions' late round pick, who turned a big corner last season in his development. Obviously helped to secure playoff victory. So that's your coordinating moves there. Barnes is more than likely out. The Lions went and attacked the same position with a couple of relative no names, but I think Muhammad's got a chance to be somebody. Any thoughts on that stuff there, Eric? All right, we hit 50 likes. Hold on real quick.
Yeah,
We hit 50 likes. Let me get these ads bounced off.
Yeah. Right on. Now let's get it to 100, everybody. We got 98 people watching. We should have 98 likes.
What are your thoughts?
Now we got over 100. Listen.
I'm listening.
This guy, they're saying Muhammad is 6'3", 240. Got pretty good size. That sounds pretty good to me. Not the biggest dude like Davenport, but they're trying to replace not only
Linebacker.
Davenport, but they're trying to replace Derek Barnes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they need somebody with a little more speed than Davenport and a little less size than Davenport. Because they want somebody that can do that whole linebacker edge position. And from what I read yesterday, both of these guys that went on the practice squad, most of their play was at edge and not at linebacker, even though they're considered linebackers. So hopefully we can get some production out of these guys. We'll see if they even hit the field or not. They're going to have to learn our system, and they're going to have to learn the camaraderie of the Lions and what it means to be a Lion, because being a Lion nowadays is a lot different than it used to be. You have to be a certain type of character and a certain type of person, or you're going to wash out and you're only going to last a couple weeks. And I kind of like seeing that they released this kicker off the practice squad. That means my boy Jake Bates is number one, and has no issues. So far, he's only missed one extra point the whole season. I think he's going to be great. And like Dan Campbell was saying last week, he almost let him go for a 73-yarder. He was going to let him attempt a 73-yard field goal to break the record. That would have been so amazing. And to be there to watch it would have been even better.
Somehow get on to Jake Bates while I was gone.
I did.
Jesus.
I said we released that kicker, so that means Jake Bates is number one, numero uno.
Yeah, he's always been. He ain't going nowhere. Yeah, so little information here on Muhammad. 6'3.5", 253 pounds at Combine Day.
Oh, wow.
He's got the arm length, 33.25-inch arms. He's got decent hand size, 9 3/8. Now, at the Combine back in, was it 2017? It was a bit different back then. Like the way that I feel like the way that the Combine measured things back then is drastically changed till today, or from today, however you want to phrase that. His production score wasn't great, only a 63. His athleticism score was terrible, 55, and his total score was a 61. But he was graded out as a 5.8, which would have put him at an average backup or a special teamer. I mean, okay. He had a 4.88 40-yard dash, so he's not blazing fast. He had a 1.73 10-yard split, which I like to see the 10-yard split closer to 1.6 or 1.58. His vertical jump was 30.5 or 30.5 inches. His broad was 9.9, and bench press 22 reps. I'm not surprised. 3-cone drill 7.25 seconds. That's a little slow. So he's not blazing fast. What I'm more interested in is, you know, and I didn't do a deep dive on this guy, but what I'm really more interested in is what is he like in coverage? You know, I think that he can get after the passer, but he's not really going to be needed, you know, as that edge rusher. He just needs to be able to contain, you know, the outside linebacker position. And not,
As of now, even if he cracks, even if one of these guys cracks the rotation, don't you think it's going to be very sparing in an emergency?
yeah, I don't think that this is it's not a permanent replacement, if you will.
They just haven't been here for training camp or, you know, to be in the trenches with these guys yet.
So his coverage, I mean, obviously was much better in 2019. He's gone from a 67.2 all the way down to a 56.3. And in 2022 was a 64. So he was at the top of his game to the bottom of his game, and now he's back, you know, closer to where he was at the top of his game. Tackling, pretty solid tackler. You know, he's 81.4, 80.5, then a 69.2. But in 22, 21, and 2019, he had his worst seasons as a tackler. His run defense is pretty solid, 73, 71.9. Most recently, 57, though, so he's going to need some work there. He's had 2,900 defensive line snaps. So he's been up on the line 2,900 snaps. And he's been on the outside as an outside linebacker 2,700 snaps. If those are accurate, I mean, this is all per PFF. He only has, well, I shouldn't say only. He has 13 sacks in his career, and he had his best year in 2021. He had 7 sacks. So he can get to the passer, right? Absolutely can. Anyway, it's just a replacement right now. You know, it's just someone to fill out a roster spot. It's an emergency need, like you said. We still have Mitchell Agudi, right? Don't we? And Isaac Ukwu. We have other players that could fill a need if needed. I have no doubt that Dan Campbell is going to do what he needs to do, and Brad Holmes is going to do what he needs to do to make sure that this team has depth and it has players that, you know, that they can get trained up. But so far, I mean, see what I'm seeing with Muhammad. I'm loving the size. I'm absolutely loving the size. I think it's a good pickup. But I don't see us bringing in a high price free agent not right now. I would say closer to the trade deadline, maybe. But what makes sense? I mean, do you want a 1-year rental? You know, do you want an expensive 1-year rental, or do you want a guy that maybe has a few years left on his contract? I'm not real sure which direction is the best direction right now. It's going to depend on where the Lions are and what injuries we're facing at that time. Really can't speculate right now. All right, let's take a look back at the roster and see where we're headed today. PFF by the numbers. Offense, defense review, power rankings. So power rankings came out again like they always do.
Which one are you looking at?
For power ranks?
Yeah.
So it's The Athletic. And I found it really interesting here. You won't believe who's number one. Take
Vikings.
a wild guess.
Vikings.
Vikings, yes. Do you have it up?
I'm getting it right now.
All right.
Let's see. Believing in the Vikings.
Yeah, so they're saying that Darnold's surprising season is nicely illustrated by his fantasy numbers. Not that fantasy has anything to do with real life football here, but whatever. His average draft position was 223rd. His actual rank after another victory is 31st, and he's 12th among quarterbacks with 16.5 points per game. Wide receiver Justin Jefferson is underperforming his draft position. He's drafted 6th, currently 14th in points per game, but not by much. I don't know why the Athletic is comparing these guys with their fantasy numbers. Power ranks are power ranks. Fantasy ranks are fantasy ranks, in my opinion. I think they're two totally separate ideas. But for the NFL Week 6 power ranking, your Commanders are rising, and apparently the Vikings have arrived. Kansas City Chiefs are at number 2. New Orleans Saints is who they beat up on Monday. And Kansas City's most productive fantasy wide receiver this year has been Rashee Rice, who is, done for the season now?
Yeah.
I'm not even going to read this stuff if it's going to be all fantasy. Number 3 is Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson passed for 348 yards and 4 TDs, rushing for 55, and led the Baltimore to score on 5 of its 6 drives after halftime. This past Sunday. After going 38th in the average fantasy draft this season, he is the top player in the league in points per game, 24.9. I got my clock completely cleaned. Like, I've given up on fantasy football. That draft position really screwed me, man. I got nobody on my team. Number 4, Houston Texans. This one's a bit confusing to me. Now, they have one extra game under their belt, so that's probably why they're getting a little bit more of a lead right now. But I mean, are the Houston Texans better than the Detroit Lions right now? I don't know. I don't think so. And then this one was a big head scratcher. So they put the Washington Commanders over top of the Detroit Lions at number 5. And your Lions are all the way down to number 6. So
yeah, because we're on the bye.
Yeah, and that's probably it. You know, they have one extra victory, or one extra game under their belt, than we do right now.
What did we fall? 3 or 4 spots from the week before?
Just one.
Just one? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they didn't have any faith the week before either.
Well, the Commanders and the Lions flip-flopped. To round out your top 10, Buffalo Bills are at number 7, Green Bay Packers are at number 8, and Dallas Cowboys are at number 9. Atlanta Falcons are at number 10. And we'll leave it at that. Do you have a power rank up for a different system?
Oh, different one here. Let's just go to ESPN. I'll check out that one.
Well, at the end of the day, for me, if I were to re-rank all these based on, I wouldn't, first of all, I wouldn't put fantasy football into this. Could I agree that Minnesota belongs at number 1? Maybe, but until the Chiefs lose, they have to stay at number 1.
Yeah. So ESPN's a little different. They're more in our line of thinking. So they have Kansas City Chiefs number 1 at 5-0, Minnesota Vikings at 5-0 number 2, and then they have Houston at 4-1 at number 3, and then the Detroit Lions at number 4 at 3-1.
I could agree with that. What's the rest of the top 10?
And then they have Baltimore at number 5, Buffalo Bills at 6, the Commanders at 7, Tampa Bay at 8, Green Bay at 9, and Dallas at 10. Now, the one thing I will say about this, the Washington Commanders, their 4 wins have come against 4 pretty not so great teams, except for Arizona.
Pretty not so great.
Yeah.
It's a struggle for words today.
Yeah, their strength of schedule is not that fantastic.
Well, let's look it up. What's the NFL strength of schedule right now?
What they've played so far.
Let's see here.
Boy, with the North being so good, every team in the North has a pretty daunting strength of schedule for the rest of the year.
Yeah, the NFC North is it's on fire right now. Why can't I find NFL strength of schedule? Yeah, I want something that's newer. Well, I guess this one's fairly new. Yeah, it's only a couple of days old. So the NFL teams with the easiest schedule so far in 2024, your Atlanta Falcons, your Los Angeles Chargers, the Bengals, the Jets, and the Bears at number 5. The NFL teams with the hardest schedules will be the Patriots, the Steelers, the Vikings, the Browns, and the Titans. I would wholeheartedly disagree. I'm sorry, but the Lions have a first place schedule, and they clearly have one of the hardest schedules. It's not even close.
The only losing team we've played so far is the Rams, right?
What's that?
Aren't the Rams the only losing team we've played so far?
Yeah, but you have to look at, all the previous playoff teams that we've played from last year.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But they have the Lions as the 18th. Strength of schedule is 18th.
Wow.
I don't think that this is correct at all. This is sharp football analysis. I don't think you're so sharp. Where is the legit strength of schedule at? Why am I not finding it? All right, here we go. NFL strength of schedule remaining. So our strength of schedule remaining rankings show the average difficulty of opponents each team will face the rest of the season. Guess who's number 1?
Detroit Lions.
Detroit Lions. Their average opponent rank of 12.4 is ranked as the more difficult of schedules out there. The Browns at number 2, the Bears at number 3, the Seahawks at number 4, the Packers at number 5, the Niners at number 6, the Giants at number 7, the Cowboys at number 8, and so on and so on and so on. The Saints, the Falcons, the Eagles, the Bengals, the Jets, the Chiefs all have the easiest schedules left. So this is remaining. Strength of schedule played so far this season. The Lions are ranked 26th as one of the easier schedules played. That still doesn't make any sense to me, though.
No.
It really doesn't.
Listen,
but it is what it is.
We're undefeated when we played them.
Yeah, but okay. So to that point, though, you got to make sure that we look at the strength of schedule, that who did they play that they beat? You know, it goes both ways. Who did they play? It doesn't matter if they're undefeated. If they played crap teams.
Yeah, I suppose. That's what I was trying to kind of say about the Commanders, that you got to look at their quality of opponents so far.
Right. I would agree.
You know, they beat up on the Browns, and the Browns are an absolute disaster. They're going to be in a fire sale next week.
The doo-doo Browns.
Yeah. They messed up so bad picking up Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, I think it's time that they just I think it's time that the Browns just drop the L and get rid of Deshaun. But I would caution every team to just not pick up Deshaun. Let the guy just wash out of the league. Just wipe your hands. Be done. It's almost like every time he walks onto the field, he has a walk of shame. And you know what? He should. He absolutely should. But that's what it looks like. Every time I see him take the field, he looks like he's embarrassed. And he gets embarrassed.
How would you like to be his left tackle? That has to be zero fun.
I wouldn't like to be his center with his hands up underneath my groin. I'll tell you that.
The whole thing. How would you like to be an offensive lineman or an offensive player, period, for the Browns, and just have zero faith in the guy that's leading your team, because your QB is your leader, and you know he's a piece of what,
right?
Dog doo-doo, and your wife at home is like, I can't believe you're playing with him. Well, I'm there to earn my paycheck. I'm gonna go earn my paycheck. Until he's gone, I'm just gonna earn my paycheck, and that's it. I'll just wait to go to another team.
There we go. David Barnett says Jamo has no drops. Thanks for improving and working hard. That's a good segue.
Isn't that awesome?
Jamo's really having a good season. He is really doing a great job. He's focused. He's attentive. I mean, he's arrived. Right now he is proving. He is proving a lot of the doubters wrong. Now, I've been a constructive criticism individual, not so much a doubter. Just show me, right? I might not live in St. Louis, but I come from the school that not so much what have you done for me lately, but what can you show me that you can do? And right now he's showing us. He just needed a little bit more time to develop. That's all. And he's finally working, well within the confines of the system, and with Jared Goff, and being patient and not getting his feelings hurt when he's not getting the ball. We've all seen the Jared Goff, Jamo sideline conversations where Jared's like, they're coming, don't worry about it. They're coming, talking about his targets. Jamo just shakes it off. He's all right, cool, whatever. Let me go out there and set a block for somebody. And that's the right attitude to have. Let me go out there and help out the next guy. Let me go out there and help Demo get free. Let me go block for Amon-Ra St. Brown. And that's the Jamo that we need. And if we have more guys like that on this team, man, we're going to win a lot of ball games. Shout out to Ed O'Neill. He's back at it again with a $1.99 super chat. He says, would you trade Dallas's loss for a Vikings win? Are you saying the Lions losing to Dallas but winning against the Vikings?
Nope.
Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Because if that's the case, Ed, no. Because I think that we can drop one to the Vikings and still be fine.
Yep.
I think we would be fine. Yeah. So that was a question from Ed O'Neill. Would you trade the Lions losing to Dallas but winning against the Vikings? And I have to go hard no. We've got to beat Dallas.
Revenge.
It's still an NFC team, right? We have to take care of them. We have to get those wins that can help us later from tiebreaker scenarios. And I think that if we split with the Vikings, we can still make it rain in the North. Here you go, buddy. Yeah, let's get you. Since we're talking about Jamo, here we go.
Jameson makes the catch. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about, number 9.
Yeah, so to your point, Ed, yeah, a Vikings loss or a loss to the Vikings puts us 2 games behind, but I expect that the Vikings are going to have a few tough games. They're not going to win them all. Let's just put it that way.
I think we'll be just fine in the race with the Vikings. And as far as Jamo goes, if we rewind the tape and go back to our preseason prediction show, I predicted that Jamo would be a Pro Bowler and he just might lead the Lions in receiving yards. And so far, so good. We'll see what happens the rest of the way, but man, Jamo's on his way and he has arrived.
He's on his way. He's on his way and he has arrived. Those kind of don't match up, but I get it. I get what you're saying there. He's here. I think Jamo's here and he's here to stay. I think that the production that we're seeing from him from week to week is a baseline for him. And it's something that both you and I had said early in the preseason. The guy is just like 2 yards of separation away of a TD on any play. And he had about 4 yards of separation. He caught, the crosser from Jared Goff, and he's just gone. Love
that
it.
was the play. That right there is the exact play. He called it. If you watch the NFL films, they had him mic'd up, and he called the play before it even happened. He said, if this is cover 0, I'm gone. I'm going to score. And it was cover 0. Boom. Hit him right in stride, right across the middle. Almost ran into Laporta, and Laporta had to put on the brakes. And I'm telling you, man, that was the play I was screaming for in the NFC Championship game over and over and over. Throw it to Jamo over the middle. Throw it to Jamo over the middle. Just let him do his thing. And it didn't happen in the NFC Championship game, but it happened against the Seahawks, and I'm glad it did. And dude, I absolutely love Jamo. I love him this year. Jamo and Bates were my 2 players that I was really, really big on in the preseason. Still big on both of them. They're both doing excellent. I just wish that we would have got 3 or 4 more yards against the Seahawks, and that Dan Campbell would have let him try for a 73-yarder.
That would have been fun to watch, but something tells me he probably wouldn't have made it. That's a long boot.
It probably would have been the longest try in NFL history. That would have been fun, whether he hit it or not.
I have no idea. So David Barnett says we are legit Super Bowl contenders. Add a great pass rusher, and we are Super Bowl favorite. So that's a good segue, because I am going to wholeheartedly disagree, Mr. Barnett. And that was part of the topic discussion today is our defense ranking and PFF by the numbers. So the pass rush, and I've gone over this multiple times this week, part of last week, over the weekend. Our team has never been better than what it is right now. And we have had a different starter on the right side in every game, except for 2 that we had Marcus Davenport in. And I think that's telling, because it's not the exterior of your defense that is going to help you win in the pass rush. It is the interior of your defense. Let me paint you a picture. Let me do a poll. Let's do this. Let me do a poll. We'll do question and answer. Do you believe the Lions were better in pass rush in 2023 or 2024 so far? Now, don't take into consideration sacks, because I would tell you that we are about even in sacks through the first 4 games. So don't worry about sacks, because stats don't always tell you every single bit of the story. You have to look at everything that's involved. So were we better in 23 or are we better in 24? So we'll let that marinate for a minute. And while that's marinating, I'm going to come back to this segment.
I got a little tidbit.
And so how can you answer that question? You're only 5 games in. Well, you compare the stats. It's pretty simple. I guess it's the same way as saying you need another edge rusher to be a Super Bowl favorite. How could you say that? We're 4 games in, right? And I'm not picking on you, Mr. Barnett. I'm just using that as an analogy. I'm going to come back to that. Let's let that marinate for a minute. Okay. I want to go to this video of Dan Campbell. And before I do that, Eric's got something for us. What do you got?
Yeah. So looking it up on DraftKings right now, the Lions are the number 2 best odds in the NFC and number 4 overall to win the Super Bowl right now at plus 1,000. The Vikings are at plus 1,100. They're not even as good as we are according to Vegas. And then the 49ers are plus 800. So the only team that has better odds of winning the Super Bowl from the NFC than the Lions right now, according to Vegas, is the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah. So like all state, all balls not. I don't know what that says. All balls NOD. It says because we've known that we've needed an edge for 3 seasons. I mean, I would say that we needed depth. I think that we've needed a compliment, but I don't think that we've needed a superstar. Davenport was not brought in to be a superstar. No, I mean, all of you probably thought that he was hot garbage based on, certain takes from other people. Davenport was the worst, possible situation, injuries, and, hasn't done anything in a couple of years and was the worst possible pickup. And right away, you saw how that was false. Davenport was exactly what this team needed. He was playing perfectly into our system and was doing everything that was needed. But again, that wasn't because of Aiden on the other side that Davenport was having success. It was because of the interior defensive linemen that were having success. And the fact that we've got better DBs that are helping these guys have success. But I'm going to come back to this because what I want to get into first is Dan Campbell. What is Dan Campbell doing in the offseason? And I found this little tidbit. It was from the beginning of the season. So let's listen to old Dan Campbell here. Why is it not wanting to play? Hold on here. Come on. All right. Now we've got it. What in the world is this thing doing?
Went back to what we do. I told the guys, man,
It was a season of first since, the first division title since, the first home playoff win since. How has the preparation differed this offseason leading up to try to get that ultimate goal, that first ever Super Bowl win?
Yeah, I mean, really, we kind of went back to what we do. I told the guys, man, our identity is the most important thing, and we have to reestablish our identity. And really, to get back to where we were at and then surpass that, we got to go back to work. And it's got to be all the little things, the details, the resiliency. I think more than anything, it's been about that. And then these new guys, the rookies that we've drafted, the free agents, them acclimating to what we do and what we're about. And so, look, it's a step in the right direction so far.
When we got to hear so much of what you say to these guys on the field during Hard Knocks, one of the lines that stuck with so many people in so many different circles, not just football, was, all I do is think about you guys. It's all I do. Last season was special, but it ended so abruptly. How did you spend every day since thinking about these guys out here?
Yeah, well, it's always about, man, how do you set them up to have success, right? To ultimately finish that game out and then get past that one to the next one, which is the Super Bowl, and then win that game, And so you're constantly thinking about that. You're thinking about yourself. What could you have done better? What could I have done better to help those guys? Where can we be better in general? And I think that's ultimately what it's about, man. As a coach, you want to put your players in the best position to have success. And with it, that's what's hard is, okay, we built ourselves up here and we've got a foundation, we got the right guys, and we've added to it. We've got the right demeanor, we got the right attitude, but yet, all right, we got to keep pushing because we got to remember who we are, but you got to be careful. You know, we go too far and we pull that rubber band too far. And so that's the balance, right? That's the fine line, and it's one of those things that constantly keeps me up, honestly.
These guys are good, and you know that better than anybody. To draft and build the core, sign guys, trade for guys, and then to see this offseason, Penei Sewell resigns, Amon-Ra St. Brown re-ups, Jared Goff, the quarterback that everybody said was a bridge guy, signs a huge extension. How much pride do you take in knowing that this group you guys have assembled is the group that can ultimately be that group to take you to that next level?
Enormous amount of pride, man. Those are the guys, you know, that's, for Brad and myself, that's where it started. And those guys that were here before we got here and bought into what we're about, the Frank Ragnows, the Deckers, that group, man, you have a vision for those players and you believe that these are going to become staples for us, and to see that happen and honestly even go beyond that, right? The players that you listed are just, they're special players, man. And when your best players are your hardest working players, your most accountable players, you can't help but fall in line if you're somebody under them.
But I can tell you this, when you're part of the organization and it's been 30 years since you won a championship, it's special, man.
I hear you speak at the world's greatest and biggest podium ever seen to mankind, and then we see glimpses of you guys talking with the guys on the field. The way you speak, you've talked about the football minds that have shaped you, Sean Payton, Bill Parcells among them. But I'm wondering, even before that, did you have a gift of speaking and leading people? You know, 6th grade Dan Campbell talking at lunch and everyone's going, "Yeah, Dan, great speech." Where'd that gift come from?
I don't know. Honestly, I would say, yeah, I always had the ability to speak my mind, I guess, and feel like people are listening to you. And that was early. I mean, that was certainly the high school years. I can remember the first time I ever stood up and said something to the team, and it was just one of those things where you're sitting there and you're like, it's just brewing, and you can feel the heat on the back of your neck, and I'm like, I got to say something. I have to say something. And certainly back then it was very raw. But yeah, I think I do. Where does it come from? I don't know. I just feel compelled to speak what's on my mind and it be real and who I am, you know. And that the hardest thing is when somebody, they want to hear you talk or they want to hear you speak, and you know, where's the energy, where's the attitude? Just like, man, I got to feel like I can't fake something. I can't write it down on a piece of paper and give this formal speech, and I certainly don't want to do that with the players as much as I can keep from it. It goes stale.
It rarely works out as well as it has here of building those core pieces. Do you pinch yourself at all, looking at just how well you guys have assembled this all?
I know I'm fortunate. I am very fortunate, first of all, to be around the ownership, Sheila Hamp, because she had the patience and she trusted what Brad and I said. We told her, look, this is going to be an uphill battle, and it's going to take a minute, but we believe this is the best way to do it, you know, and let's burn it to the ground and build it back up. And
spot on.
And she believed, the players believed, and because of that, man, Brad and I have ownership in this, and now the players are beginning.
All right, let me pause there. So the biggest part of this whole transformation of your Detroit Lions, and I know I'm kind of going off into the weeds here, but what Dan Campbell just said, a couple things. One, being around Sheila Hamp and what she has done for this team as the managing owner of the team, allowing them the freedom and the patience to burn it to the ground. I've always said that, you know, that they didn't just bring it to the studs, right? They went to the mud, and they reached in the mud and they just started pulling everything together, you know, brick by brick, stick by stick. They started putting it all together. When you build a team that way, and this is what I don't think everybody gets or understands, and I could be totally wrong here, but just based on what I've watched, listened to, studied, and I guess what the Lions have really done is when you burn something to the ground and build it layer by layer to where it is today. And Dan Campbell's 1,000% correct. He is very fortunate. And Brad Golly's 1,000%. It doesn't always work out this way. But to do that, and then to throw it all away and then go out and sign high-priced free agents would be conflicting at a minimum of how they're building this team. They had to go through, like he said, it's an uphill battle. It's going to take some time. So for everyone to take a step back and look at all of the crap that's been spewed over the last few years, right? Since 2022, really, when the Lions weren't starting off very well. Brad and Dan need to go already. That's what's being said. They've got to go out and sign all these high-priced free agents. They're going to be nobodies until they do. Well, that wasn't how they were building this team. They burn it down to build it up the right way, which was through the draft. It takes a minimum of 4 drafts to be able to do that. And I say 4 because even if you get a modest 6 picks in every draft, that's 24 players. And you need 25 players to field a complete team. Unless you have two-way players, but 25 players. So 4 times 6 is 24. Maybe one year you got 7 picks. And that's just, assuming that you're kind of moving around a little bit. We didn't expect, the trade with Matthew Stafford and Jared Goff to work out as well as it did, but it did. And we also didn't expect that Brad Holmes was going to hit on 90% or more of all of his draft picks. And we also didn't expect that, 75% or more were going to be starters in year 1, year 2, year 3. Everyone's starting at some point. The point that I'm trying to make here is they built it after burning it down. They're not going to go backwards at this point and start to spend lavishly, foolishly, and bring in these high-priced free agents just because they can. That's not how this team would operate. It doesn't mean that they won't ever bring in a high-priced free agent. It has to be a very perfect situation, in my opinion, based on what I've seen. If Brad sticks to what Brad says he's going to do, he'll never do that. Bringing in a guy like DJ Reader, what was he, 2 years, $29 million or something, Eric, do you remember? Something like...
I can look it up, though.
Yeah, I think it was. I think it was like 2 years, $29 million. It might have been like $15 million guaranteed. That's like... that's chump change in the NFL. Cam Sutton was probably the biggest contract we brought in. And that was 3 over 33.
So DJ Reader was 27.25 million with 9 million guaranteed.
Oh, it's even better than I thought.
For 2 years.
And Carlton Davis, what was he? I think he was he just 1 season or was he 2? I don't remember now. The point that I'm trying to make here is they went through the draft for a reason. Because they wanted to build and identify their core through the draft, which helps them build depth, right? You're training these guys your way or the highway, kind of, right? They're training them their way. That's why bringing in Hassan Reddick, who's a headache, doesn't make sense. That's why bringing in a guy like Montez Sweat or Chase Young or anybody else doesn't make sense. Now, a true specimen like Danielle Hunter in the last year of his deal at the trade deadline last year was talked about. That made sense for a push. The deal didn't happen. Brad was not going to give up anything more than I think it was a 3rd round pick or a 4th round pick, whatever he was trying to get off for Danielle Hunter. It just didn't work out. So it's not going to happen again this year when we're already missing a 3rd round pick next year. I think that's the most cap that you're ever going to see Brad Holmes give away for a free agent in the last year of their deal. And to someone's point earlier, it just doesn't always work. Like bringing in these free agents for a playoff push doesn't mean that those players are really going to help you any differently than what the players on the team already do. So we have to be careful. I understand, people want to have conversations, right? They need to make money off their content, whatever. So they're going to have, these players that, they're going to talk about. There's nothing wrong with it, but let's not frame it like it's happening. Let's not frame it like it has to happen, because so far to date, they haven't needed it. And they damn near got to a Super Bowl in year 3. Do I need to say any more? What was Carlton Davis?
So Carlton Davis, the Lions acquired Davis in a trade from the Tampa Bay Bucks, where he spent 6 seasons. The Lions inherited the final year of Davis's contract with the Buccaneers, which had a $14.35 million cap hit. In March, the Detroit Lions restructured Carlton Davis's deal. So his salary for this year is $8 million. The signing bonus converted to $6 million, which equals 14, into a signing bonus. And then they added 3 void years to the end of the contract. So Davis's cap hit for this season is $9.85 million in 2024.
Yeah, so he'll have obviously a big dead cap hit next year if he's not retained and re-signed. The way it's going right now for Carlton Davis, I expect him to probably get a new deal next year. And it's not going to be, cheap. I don't think it's going to be cheap. But I think the way that he is playing, I think he's proven so far that he's a pretty damn good corner. I like Bo Booth's statement. He calls it silver bullet syndrome. And he says, silver bullet syndrome is a thing of the past. Overpaid, over the hill, free agent acquisitions is an SOL way. Good riddance to that. I love that analogy. The silver bullet. So there's no magic bullet is what he's saying. There's no magic bullet. You need, you need an entire clip, if you will. You need a small army of really good players. You just don't need one. Aiden Hutchinson is not going to do the things that he's doing right now without DJ Reader. He's just not. And the numbers say that. So I'm not going to finish the rest of this, but the whole point of me sharing this morning is, what Dan Campbell does is all about his core values. They're just not going to fill us full of a bunch of fluff. They're not going to, build this thing. I mean, there's ego in this too, right? They're not going to build this thing up just to risk it for the biscuit in one season and completely destroy it. I would much rather see our team be competitive, make the playoffs, and maybe we get bounced in the second round, for a couple of seasons in a row, than not make the playoffs and continually have to go through player after player after player and spending unwisely and not setting the team up for the future. I would much rather be the latter than never getting anywhere with a roster, because you're not. If you keep bringing in these one-year wonders or these one-year rentals that are going to want a bag, you can't pay it. You can't if you want to keep your guys. Ed O'Neill's back at it again. He says this. It says Lions need to draft an edge this year, in my opinion. My opinion too, Ed. We're on pace with each other. We are number 4 in blitzing, and people aren't winning their one-on-ones. Hey, I'm right there with you. I'm tired of third and long conversions. So I think that there's a lot to unpack with that statement. But number one, we are number 4 in blitzing. We're blitzing a lot. And the fact that we're not winning our one-on-ones, again, that's not an indictment on any one individual, but Aiden just is not winning his one-on-ones against third-tier tackles as often as I believe that he should be. He's getting pressure, right? He's affecting the quarterback that way, but he's still engaged. He's not freed up. And to me, that's a bigger problem for Aiden than it is right defensive end. But anyway, appreciate your $4.99 super chat, Ed. I think you're spot on with your take, buddy. I really appreciate it. Let's do a little Gibbs this morning.
Goff takes the snap, gives to Gibbs. Gibbs bounces through a hole. There it goes outside 20. Gibbs, 15. Gibbs, 10. Angling to the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. Oh, baby, what a run.
Yeah, and Full State Farms, there is absolutely zero information on Shaq Lawson. So if you...
Yeah. I just looked and the only thing it says is that Shaq Lawson is a free agent defensive end who could be a potential replacement for Marcus Davenport on the Detroit Lions, but it's likely he'd be added to the practice squad. That's the only thing it says online.
I'm sorry, what did you say? I totally missed it.
Just that he could be a potential fit for the Lions. That's it. He hasn't been brought in for a free agent visit, nothing.
Yeah, so what I reached out to somebody that is kind of inside the room, if you will. And he worked out with the Titans yesterday. Yep. So he didn't work out with the Lions. Trace is at it again. Trace gifting some memberships. Look at that. J Cruisin 71, Travis Scott, Joseph Ostin, Bruce MacArthur, Mark Garcia. I mean, all people that have been around this channel for a long time were just gifted memberships by Trace. Trace, you're awesome. I got a special gift for Trace, so I got to get with Trace after the show, or this week. I got to get. I think actually I have your address, so you just be watching. Your mail. Here we go. We'll do. Where's all my other ones?
I almost forgot too. If Michael Garrity's watching, I need you to text me your address.
For the second time since 1957, for the first time since January 5th, 1992, these Detroit Lions are going to win a playoff game.
That is probably the most impactful call from Miller, man. When we won that playoff, it just against the Rams, it was crazy. It was a roller coaster full of emotion. All right, so before I get off track, let's talk about some numbers here, and I'm going to come back now to what I asked earlier. Do you believe the Lions were better in 2023 in the pass rush or 2024? Let's end it. And I want to say a lot of people put in here 2024. I didn't see a bunch of 23s. Looks like we had 5, 6, 7, 8 people or so that answered. And everyone is saying 2024, which you're right. I mean, by the numbers, we are better, but how much better? So when you look at this and everyone's saying we need another edge rusher, need another pass rusher, whatever, you want to call it. Okay. The numbers tell you we don't. By the way, you might hear a few barks. So Megan and I stepped up to help out a family in need, suffered a stroke and some other things going on. So we have inherited a 5-year-old pup. So we're babysitting at a minimum right now, but you know how hard it is to give away a dog, and she's just an absolute sweetheart. So you might hear a few barks while she's still adjusting. She probably hears me talking, but doesn't know where I'm at. So anyway, by the numbers here, 2023, your Detroit Lions ranked 19th in pass rush at 74.8. 19th. That's where they finished the season. Okay. In overall defense, I don't think this one's a secret. Your Lions were at 22nd overall defense at a 69.7. Now, so far, through just 4 games of this season, I think that there's been an amazing story starting to be written, right? Aiden Hutchinson's off to a hot start. But so is the defense. Even though we just gave up a bunch of yards to the Seahawks in the bend but don't break, just kind of finish out the game second half, we are still sitting overall defense number 2 behind the Pittsburgh Steelers, which is incredible. 76.6. Now, the one part of our defense is red zone defense, right? Here, let me pull up this key. I just want to make sure that it's red zone. Nope, I'm sorry. Run defense. Our run defense has actually slipped a little bit. So where we were in the top 5 for the majority of the season, we are now sitting at 8. which I think will creep back up. The Lions are doing just fine, but we let up a few extra yards last week to Kenneth and Gino. You know, he got a few yards. That was the most yards I think we let up all season on the ground, which about 90, I think, to Kenneth.
Yeah.
A little bit more than we anticipated. Tackling. The Lions last season were not great in tackling, but this year ranked 4th. But here's the number that is going to blow your mind. Last season, what did I say where we were in pass rush?
I don't remember.
19th, I think is what I said. Here, let me go back and look. We were 19th in pass rush. So far this season, your Detroit Lions are number 2 in pass rush. 85 overall, behind the Pittsburgh Steelers. So you tell me, how are we that much better in the pass rush when, if you look at the team today and outside of 2 games this season, we are only different by 1 player? Who's that player?
DJ Reader.
DJ Reader. Well, let me take that back. On the front line, we are only different by DJ Reader. Behind them, we have a new cast of DBs, right? Brian Branch, Ifeatu Melifonwu, who hasn't played, Kirby Joseph. So Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph are the only 2 from year over year that have stayed in the DB room. Carlton Davis is new. Amik Robertson is new. Ennis Rakestraw, who again hasn't really played, and Terry and Arnold are all new. And they haven't had the best, year so far. I mean, I from an eye test, look, Amik is amazing. Carlton Davis, incredible. Terrian, good. Handsy. Too many penalties. But he's still far and away better than what we had with Jerry Jacobs and Cam Sutton. Far and away better. Lions are ranked 11th in coverage right now. 11th. Last season, this is not a shocker, 30th. So again, tell me, please, why do we need another edge rusher right now when we've pretty much been able to drastically improve our defense from the bottom dwellers to now a top 10, dare I say, honestly, we're top 5 right now in the league. If you combine everything together, overall defense, run defense, tackling, pass rush, coverage, special teams, you combine it all together, we're a top 5. How do we go from a bottom dweller to a top 5 defense, and the only thing we changed was interior defensive line and a couple of extra new bodies in the back end? Now, from what I've heard from other people, the defense isn't going to get better because we upgraded our DBs, or our defensive line's not going to get better because we upgraded our DBs. It's flat out wrong. When you look at the best defenses around the league, especially the best defensive lines, you are going to see that their DBs are some of the best players in the league. That is not some secret. That is by design. And the Lions are falling right into that same category. Yeah, they need a little bit more time to gel. They need a little bit more time on task before Terry and Arnold finally figures it out. You know what? Maybe in the second half of this season, Terry and Arnold's probably going to figure it out. And if he doesn't, and he continues to get penalties, well, they could hurt us. They really could. But so far, they've figured out a way. The biggest number, Eric, and you know this, that I said had to change this year was points against. Now last year, I think the Lions ranked, I don't know, was it somewhere probably in the bottom third?
Yeah, it's 23rd, I think.
23.2 or 23.5, something like that. And right now we're giving up like 20.5 points per game. That is how you win games. You got to keep points off the board. And we have graduated by a field goal year over year, and it's still early. To your points in the chat, how can we judge us this early? Well, I think you can. And I think that, to your point, Bo Booth, young guys are getting better. Development is key. Perfect statement. But you're not going to have development from guys that you're bringing in. No, you got to have development through the draft. Yeah, you can develop guys you bring in, but it typically takes a little bit longer because they have all those bad habits that you're trying to break. It's like potty training a dog, that you're getting from, I guess, my perfect case point. I've got a dog that I don't know anything about. Hopefully it's pretty well potty trained. But if it's not, do you think I'm going to be able to re-potty train a 5-year-old pup? It's going to be really difficult. Nope. I'm going to have to make sure I get that dog outside all the time. So it's much, what an analogy that is. We got to potty train our defense. Yeah. So look, guys, we don't need an edge rusher to do what we're doing. We need guys that fit the identity, the culture, the scheme. The scheme is the most important thing. If you can plug and pull guys in, because of a scheme change that is identical, or a scheme fit that is identical from where they're coming from, obviously that's a step in the right direction. If you're bringing a 3-4 guy into a 4-3, there's some hurdles there. Not to say that they can't do it, because they do it all the time, but it's a little bit more difficult. Where would I look? Right? Who would I look for? There's one name that I mentioned right after the game. And that was Budda Baker. Now, I get it. He's not a linebacker, but let me pull up his stats real quick. Do you have any comments, Eric?
Just looking at the chat, like Brent Layton says, the refs don't call DPI consistently at all. We know half of the Terrion penalties wouldn't have.
Good point.
Wouldn't have need called on a vet. He will be fine, and I think that's correct. If anybody watched the game last night, the Monday Night Football game, after every single play on offense, if the player on the Chiefs did not catch the ball, he got up and threw his arms up in the air like it was a DP call, pass interference on every single call. And the Saints guys were doing the exact same thing. I don't know what it is with these. And if you watched the Monday Night Football game last week, DK Metcalf, after every single play, was going to the refs. Hey, he's holding me. That's pass interference on every single play. And then they finally get their flag out and they start throwing it on every single play. So I don't know if it's the receivers getting in the ears of the refs or what. They almost need to take that ability away from the players to gripe and moan to the refs on every single play, or throw a flag on them or something. And then Ed O'Neill did another super chat for $1.99, and he says, penalties on third down saved Seattle, fix that. And that is true. So Seattle got 6 first downs on scoring on scoring drives to help them. And it's just getting out of hand. They need to let these players play, in my opinion. This whole defensive pass interference has been nuts this year. I wonder what it is year over year, like through the first 4 games or 5 games last year, through the first 5 games this year. I wonder how many pass interference calls there were last year versus this year in the NFL as a total. I just want to see them play. I want to see, you know what I want to see? I want to see playoff football. That's the type of football I want to see all year long, not just in the playoffs.
So I was talking about Budda, and all great points, by the way. And thank you again, Ed, for your support of the channel, man. It definitely doesn't go unnoticed. Really appreciate you. And everybody that helps out this channel. I don't know where all of my sound bites went, but let's do Jamo again.
Jameson makes the catch. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about, number 9.
All right, so I was talking about Budda Baker there. So when I look at where this team is at right now, and the fact that we do have some holes. And I'm not saying that the Lions don't need to bring in any players. They do. We lost, a big one with Davenport. I mean, look, I wasn't extremely high on the acquisition at the very beginning because of, injury history. There was some things there, but the more I learned about Davenport, the more I watched what he did on tape, the more excited I became. And I kept saying, look, if we can just get something like 80% of 2022 out of this guy, and he can stay healthy, not intentionally injured, allegedly. But if he could stay healthy, he was going to be very impactful, and he was. He was very impactful. He did everything, in my opinion, the right way. Very disciplined. And sometimes you just need disciplined play versus, otherworldly type play, like, Aiden's crazy motor and the things that he does. It's time to go somewhere. Or do something, I guess. I don't know. So Buddha does make some sense. I mean, we just lost the Fetu Melifonwu. So when you look at a player like we just witnessed was a complete menace, against the Lions in that game. He was an absolute menace, and I love his style of play. Very aggressive, very heady, always in the right position at the right time. Makes plays all over the field. Yeah, those are the types of players you want to bring in. But how feasible is it? Well, right now the Cardinals, they have a good season going. Their record may not indicate that, but they do have a good season going, meaning, they're just missing it by a little bit. And some of those things could get fixed, before too long here, where they may be able to string together, a nice amount of wins, and they're right back in the playoff hunt. But right now, Budda Baker is signed only through this year. And his salary right now is, it's a 19 million cap hit. So depending on when, you trade for this guy, obviously you're not going to absolve or have to inherit all of it. But if you put a trade post June 1, right now the Lions would probably absorb about $15 million in salary, depending on when they would make this trade, if they would make that kind of trade. Now, $15 million for one player of his caliber headed into the playoffs, it could be highly beneficial. But I think it puts you right in the same box and talk as edge rusher. Why would we spend that kind of money? I absolutely love what Budda Baker does on the field, but why would we spend that kind of money? So to me, that number is going to have to be south of 10 million, like way south of 10 million. And it can't be more than, a fourth or a fifth round pick if you're going to make some, and it has to be conditional, and it has to be 2026, not 2025. That's where it makes sense to me. If it's, I know that sounds too good for the Lions, but taking in that kind of money, you're not going to give up top tier draft picks, and it better not be this next season when the Lions are still continuing to try to build. But if you bring in a player like that and he does work out, which you would think that he would, we don't know if Fetu Melifonwu is coming back. So how would I frame this? How would I sell this to my GM, or how would my GM sell this to the owner? I'd say, look, Fetu Melifonwu had a good season and a half. Yeah, we could probably bring him back on the cheap. So if he comes back on the cheap, then it makes sense to roll the Fetu Melifonwu. But if he wants anything close to 10 million a year, well, then it makes sense to go in another direction. And we'll go in another direction where, Budda Baker's up for his second contract, I believe, or this will be his third contract. Maybe we can get him at a fairly good rate that is very close or commensurate to what a Fetu Melifonwu is going to want, or a Kirby Joseph is going to want. And we have to be prepared that we're going to lose one or both of those guys in free agency. That's where it makes sense. What are you losing on the back end? You have to, and so Buda's been in the league 7 seasons. So what are you losing on the back end? And then you're bringing in a guy that has all that experience to play with a Carlton Davis, to play with an Amik Robertson, to play with a Brian Branch, and hopefully a Kirby Joseph that he sticks around. So that's how I look at trades. It's not just we have to bring in this guy and that's it. No, what's down the pipe? You know, what do we have coming up in the next season or two? You know, or even this next season, what's going to happen in free agency? Who are we losing potentially? So that's where Buda would make sense, because we are potentially going to lose Iffy. And Kirby, I can't remember. Is Kirby in his last year or next year's last year? I can't remember right now.
This is his 4th year, I'm pretty sure. Wasn't he the 3rd round in his first draft?
Let's take a look here. So I don't understand these numbers. 22, 23, 24, 25. So Kirby signed through next year.
Oh, okay.
So we've got one more year of Kirby, which is great. So then there you go. You bring in a guy like Buda if Afetu's gone, and then you look at your overall salary for the safety position. If Buda's making 12, Kirby's making 1.6, and Brian Branch is probably right around the same. And then you also have to take into consideration, you know, the cap increase. So Brian Branch is making on average $2.2 million a year, but in 2025 he's making 2.1. So you're spending 3.8 plus, let's say 12 on Buda. You're spending $16 million a year on a safety room. That's not terrible. So what is 16 million on, you know, the total cap? If you go by percentage, which is how they do it. What's our cap right now? 255?
Something like that.
So that's 6% of the cap. That is doable for a positional group. 6%. That's how I look at things. Now, the other guys that were mentioned, or the other guys that, you know, are possibles or potentials, if you will. Edge, Azeez Ojulari. So after seeing his production decrease every year since his 8-sack rookie season, 8 sacks as a rookie, Ojulari, who's 24, which will be entering his 2nd contract, has taken a back seat to Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau. So now he's headed into his final year of his rookie deal. Here's another opportunity for the Lions to bring in a guy that had a really good rookie year. He's now overshadowed by free agency acquisitions. He probably can still be that player that he was in his rookie season. He just needs a change of pace, right? A little change of scenery, the right coaching, the right development. You can take a guy like this who's down on his production. You can get him at a fairly cheap contract, and then you bring him in, and next thing you know, he could be one of your better producers. Or he could just be a complimentary guy to back up Marcus Davenport, who I expect to be back next year. So, that kind of move makes sense. Now, I don't know enough about Ojulari, so I wouldn't say I'm for or against the move. These were just thrown out by, who threw these out? Nolan Bianchi.
That's the guy that Jared was talking about, too.
Who?
Jared yesterday.
Oh, that's right. He did mention him.
Yep.
So the other guy, Trey Hendrickson from the Bengals. Now he requested a trade over the summer. He's still seeking an extension as he plays through the final season of his contract. So again, that's the situation that you're in. You know, Trey Hendrickson, he's going to want a bag. How are you going to pay somebody like Trey Hendrickson and Aiden Hutchinson and, you know, you see where I'm going? And. I mean, you still got all of these other players that you have to bring in. Right now, he is set to make $20 million this year, cap hit. Now, they said that he was in the final year of his contract, but it says that he's signed through 2025. And he's set to make $18.7 million next year. And he wants a new deal. So he's probably going to want north of 20 million for probably a 3-year deal. 3-year deals are what smart players try to do. You know, it's not 4, it's not 2, it's just enough. And it helps them maximize their contract value by not going to 4 or 5-year deals. 3 years kind of gets them into that swing of when the contracts kind of balloon up every 3 years for positional groups. So he's probably going to want 60 million over 3 years. I don't know how you're going to do that and afford to pay, you know, Aiden Hutchinson 30 million a year, because that's what he's going to get. It just doesn't make sense. I'd rather see a second tier option or another option like Davenport come back, but you better this time back him up with something a little bit better, right? I think you need to back up the backup, if you will. Yeah. So Jason saying that, you know, Davenport is so injury prone. That injury that he suffered wasn't his fault. I think that everyone is on board here that injury was allegedly intentional. So I think he injured his elbow or something early in the game, right? Came in with a sleeve. Like, that was no big deal. He played through it. Matter of fact, he played through the triceps injury. But he was clearly targeted. He targeted that arm. And when he hacked it, you know, with the chop and pulled it, it just ripped the tricep, you know, right off. So that's not something that just happens, right? It's a pretty wild injury if you think about it. But at any rate, I don't think that Davenport, yeah, he's injury prone to a degree. I mean, a lot of players get injured. I think his production was far outweighing the value of his contract, because his contract at the end of the day was only guaranteed for $3 million. He only played in a couple of games. You only get paid, you know, during the games that you play. So I'm not sure if they did an injury settlement or anything with him, but he should have been only guaranteed $3 million this year. And he was well worth it. Even at $6 million, if it was fully wasted, I feel like Davenport was well worth the flyer that they took out on him, because we saw right away the impact that he had and how smart and defined he was in his moves. He played extremely well. I would love to see him. See you, Shane. Have a good day, man. Chris Mason says Aiden's worth more than 34 million a year. I hope not. I absolutely hope not.
That's crazy money.
Brent Lighton says Betts is great against players who can't sniff the NFL. Oh, you talking about Matthew Betts?
Yeah, they were talking about him in the chat, but he's gone. He's on a Canadian football contract. He cannot come back to the NFL.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, you can't bring him back right now. And you know what? I think that someone made a good point about Betts. At 29 years old, look, he played well, you know, from the time that we saw him get some snaps. I think he played pretty well. But he, at 29, wasn't going to make the practice squad because of his age. Like, if he was 25, I feel like the Lions would have probably said, okay, we're going to give him a shot here. We're going to bring him back on the practice squad. But because he was 29 and he wasn't able to crack the 53, probably put him on the outside looking in, and it just wasn't going to work out. And he didn't really jump off the page. He played well, but he didn't really jump off the page. I think his athletic skills are incredible. I think his speed is absolutely insanity. And when he took a 70-yard pick six back or something like that the other day, and he was outrunning safeties, or he was outrunning receivers, I mean. So, yeah, I mean, there's some great things that Matthew Betts brought to the table. I absolutely would have loved seeing him on this team, but that doesn't mean that he would have been any better than Davenport. It doesn't mean he's any better than what we have right now. And it's unfortunate, but, you know, such is life, I guess. All right, we got a few minutes left here. What else do we have left on the roster for today? Anything that's on your mind?
Not too much. let's see here. Lions rookie running back. Will the Lions give Sion Vaki an opportunity to play offense and get a few snaps this year?
Oh, that's right. You had the 5 questions for Will today, don't we?
Sure, there we go. That's one of them. So do you think Sion Vaki will get some snaps on offense?
Well, I think he's already seen the one on special teams. Let me say it this way. I hope not, because if he's getting snaps, that means we're down somebody. Does that make sense?
Yeah. All right. So cornerback. Will the Lions ask Carlton Davis to play one side, or will he travel with Dallas's starting wide receiver, CeeDee Lamb?
Say that one more time. Let me answer this question in the chat real quick. Betts wouldn't take a practice squad position because the CFL pays more. I don't think he had an option. Like he wasn't offered a practice squad position.
No.
Yeah, he wasn't offered. I mean, he was cut and that was it. So I think that Betts, yeah, he is probably one of the highest paid players in the CFL, but at almost $1 million a year, I don't know what his contract is in Canada, but anyway, go ahead with your question.
Yeah. So do you think Carlton Davis will travel with CeeDee Lamb, or will he be on just one side of the field?
No, I do feel like he's going to be traveling.
Yeah.
Yeah. One for sure. Yeah, keep going. I'm trying to look at his contract here.
All right. So the defense. Can the Lions defense trust Josh Pascal to step up after the loss of Marcus Davenport?
One more time.
Can the Lions defense trust Josh Pascal to step up after the loss of Marcus Davenport?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he already did. So in the first game that he was primary right defensive end, he had his best game, I think, of his career, PFF score-wise. And again, it was only the first game. First game dedicated to playing the right defensive end, the big end position. I didn't see him get beat outside. I didn't see him have any big critical errors. That doesn't mean that there's not things that he can't clean up, but no, I think he played well, and I do believe that Josh Pascal's going to take this opportunity head on, and I think we're going to be just fine.
Right. My last question. Through 4 games, who has been the Lions' most important player?
Through 4 games, who has been the Lions' most important player?
Yeah.
I think we kind of went through this the other day. Like we went through MVPs. So, I mean, I think I have to go with the same answer. On offense, it was Demo.
Yeah.
I think you said Jamo.
Yep.
On defense, is Aiden right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I would also give a consolation prize to DJ Reader because he's been the reason why this defense is playing the way that it is. That was it. 3 out of 5.
Yep.
3 out of 5.
It.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I got to get rolling here pretty soon. I got quite the busy day going on. I have a show in Detroit this week. So Friday I won't be able to be on because I'm going to be doing a rock show at the Macomb Community College down in Warren for the Greater Detroit Rock Gem and Mineral Show. I got to start loading up and getting ready for that today.
It sounds fun. It sounds like a good old time. So I guess that's really all we had. So I'm going to save a few of these for tomorrow. And you said that was Friday, right? So we'll find someone to come on for Friday. Not sure who it is yet, but it'll be somebody.
There you go.
It'll be somebody. All right, you guys have a good day. That's it for today's show. I would like to know, though, in the comments. Well, first, please like the stream. Let's get this thing up to 100 before I bounce off. 2, give us an opportunity with subscriptions. You're going to be able to win an autographed mini helmet if you're subscribed to the channel and you join the pop-up live, which will probably happen this week still. I don't think there's any reason why we won't hit another 100 subscribers in the next couple of days. But I would like to know in the comments, based on the information that I've given you today, have I swayed your decision or your thinking that the Lions really need another top tier pass rusher or top tier edge rusher, however you want to call it? Or do you still feel that we need a top 10, 20, 25 edge rusher in the league to pair up with Aiden Hutchinson? And then I would also implore you to take a look around at the depth charts in the NFL. There's not very many teams out there, maybe 1 or 2, that have, a bona fide, top 32, 2 top 32 edge rushers or edge positions on their team, on the roster. It just doesn't happen very often. And I think the Lions are having a much better much better defense this season just by inserting DJ Reader, which has been, in my opinion, the biggest change to the defense this season. So let me know in the comments below, and that's it for today's show. We'll see you guys back here tomorrow. I'll get to that question here offline. All right, you guys have a good day. Take care. Go on Pride. Go Detroit Lions. We'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.
In the city, where the road meets the night, the Lions charge, ready for the fight. Noble hearts and steadfast pride. Detroit spirit, we wear it white. Feel the drive, hear the crowds embrace. Rock on, Detroit Lions will rise. With a heart full of dreams and the fire in our eyes. From the past to the future, we'll claim our own. In the hall of the brave, we'll proudly have grown. In the city, where the road meets the night, the Lions charge, ready for the fight. Noble hearts and steadfast pride. Detroit spirit, we wear it white. Feel the drive, hear the crowds embrace. Rocked on, Detroit Lions will rise. Rocked on, Detroit Lions will rise. With a heart full of dreams and the fire in our eyes. From the past to the future, we'll claim our own. In the hall of the brave, we'll proudly have grown. With every game, we rise and unite. Feeling the passion igniting the light. Through highs and lows, we'll stand as one. A legacy, a tale that's just begun. Together